Okay, so in this video, we're going to assemble our cupcake crown, and we're going to begin by putting together the bottom of the crown, and that's the base. Okay, so what we need to find is these pieces here, okay, and these pieces are going to make up the little wall that creates the dimensional part of that circular base. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin by simply gluing these pieces end to end. And actually, starting off real strong here with a mistake, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on this tab here, and you want the texture side out, and you want these tabs inside so they're hidden. Okay, so do your best to just get those aligned, and you can actually bend them on the score and fold them over on top of itself here, just to make sure that you've got it nice and lined up, because they should technically overlap seamlessly like that. Okay, so just make sure that that's nice and dry before you move on to the next one. So we're going to repeat that process a couple more times here until we have all four of these connected. It's going to create a nice long strip for us. So go ahead and do that with the remaining pieces, and then we're going to go ahead and join this thing together. Okay, so we have all four pieces connected. It's a nice long strip. Now, what I suggest you do is kind of grab at the junction point and grab this piece here and just kind of run this across the edge of your table just to kind of give it a natural curve. Okay, so then just grab the next piece at the two junction points and just gently run that across your table, the edge of your table, to give it a little bit of curve, because we want this thing to begin training so that it knows that it's going to be round. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to close this up. Okay, and we're going to just join this piece like so. Okay, so just hold that in place until it's nice and dry. And we are going to be putting a little decorative liner around this. So if you do get a little bit of glue that pops out, that's totally okay. Okay, so there is that piece starting to take shape. And what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter which is the top or which is the bottom, you're going to go ahead and fold these tabs over. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a nice little liner piece in here to begin helping this thing take its shape. And then we're going to put another liner piece in. We're going to close it up, top and bottom. And actually, we do have a little support piece that goes in here as well, just so that this thing doesn't cave in under the pressure of all of the cupcakes that we're going to put inside. Okay, so just do your best to get those tabs ready. Make sure they're as flat as you can get them so it sits nice and flat. And now you're going to grab these circles here, and you'll notice that on one of them, along the edge here, there's a little L for liner cut into it. Okay, so you're going to grab that piece, and I'm just going to pop that inside here. And as you can see, that is going to begin helping us form this structure. Okay, so there you see how it created a nice circle for us. Now, what you can do, and since this is just a liner piece, one thing that I've recently started doing, because glue tends to kind of get a little messy, and this is just a liner piece, I have this advanced tape gun, okay, and all I'm doing is I'm just kind of running my tape gun around the perimeter of this thing, and this just makes it so much quicker for all those little tabs to kind of grip, especially since it's just the liner. Now for the actual top, I'm going to use glue because that's going to give us a better, more permanent hold. But for the sake of time and speed, I really like this thing a lot. And it just makes life easier and quicker. Okay, so I've got glue all the way around this thing, and I'm going to go ahead and just drop this in. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to glue and install the support piece that's going to go inside there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got these 4 pieces here, and we're going to glue these side to side to create our little support piece. And again, that's doesn't matter how you glue this together. No one's going to see this piece ever. So you're just going to glue these pieces side to side, all 4 of them, and then we're going to connect them all together at the end. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that we have those pieces connected, we want to finish the connection and start forming our little box here. So I'm going to glue this end to the opposite end. Just hold that down until it dries. Okay, and we're going to have a nice big box here. You can start kind of folding at the score lines, start creating that shape, and then bring these boxes down, or I'm sorry, these tabs down. And you're going to place glue on these tabs here. We're going to take this piece and glue it to the top. Okay. And let that set and dry. And we're going to get this piece on the other side. I'm going to put glue on this, like so, and glue this top piece on, or bottom, doesn't really matter, and give it just a second. Now I'm really rushing through this piece here, but that's okay because like I said, no one's really going to see this piece. We're just kind of putting it together to add some stability to the middle of our cupcake holder. Okay. So that's going to get glued pretty much right in the center there. So you're going to take your glue and just place that in the center as best as you can and give that a chance to dry. Okay, now what we've also done is we've created this additional liner piece. Okay, and this liner piece, I thought, well, one thing that happens when you try to assemble these, sometimes they tend to kind of cave in a little bit as you're pushing down. So this additional liner piece is going to ensure that this base is nice and even. Okay, so I'm going to grab my tape gun again because I just love how quick it is, and it really speeds things up as far as assembly. Because the last thing you want to do is spend forever putting one of these together. You're welcome to use glue if you'd like. I find that this works for my purpose. And again, ultimately, all it's doing is helping us set up to glue that top part more evenly. So if this piece gives out eventually, I don't think it really makes a difference because it will help us accomplish what it is we set out to accomplish, and that's all we really needed it to do. So I'm just going to pop that inside like so. Okay, and then the cool thing about this liner is you can get your get your hand under there. And actually, what I want to do is, and this is kind of redundant, but I do want to bend these in and out because it's just a lot easier to work with when they're already kind of bent and the score lines are kind of worked in a little bit. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. Okay, so we've got those all bent out. I'm going to pop this in place, and I'm just going to start on one side here and start gluing these to the liner. And I'm going to grab just a few on this side, and then I'm going to go on the opposite side and get that glued into place. And then I'm going to go on the opposite side, get that glued into place. And I'm going to go on this side here, get that glued into place. Okay, and then you can just go ahead and basically go like clockwise or counterclockwise all the way around. Okay, so at this point we've got our top and bottom. I'm going to say that this side probably looks a little bit better. So what we can do is we can place our glue on the perimeter of this thing. And we're going to put our final piece on here to close this off. We've also got some room here, and you can technically put a little bit of glue on there just to get as much surface area covered as possible, and then just pop that down. And again, because we've got that support piece and because we've got that additional liner in there, it just makes for a more sturdy area to pop this top piece on. And just work your hand around and your fingers around the perimeter. And you might need to just kind of tuck some spots in. Now, remember, we're working with round shapes here. And sometimes in the paper world, it's kind of difficult to get something round to kind of fit perfectly, but pretty much did a pretty good job with this. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And texture side up. Both of these sides look pretty textured to me. I think this side looks better. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that on. And again, you might need to tuck some corners in for the most part. It's a really nice piece. Also want to mention that we do have these little strips here, and these get glued down like so. There's 4 of them, and you want to kind of butt them up side to side, okay, or right next to each other, I should say. So we're just going to glue them down like so, and you're going to put all 4 all the way around. Now, we did, on purpose, make these a tiny bit big, okay? So that last one, when you put it on, may slightly overlap the first one, and that is by design in case your circle ends up, because of the assembly, a little bit bigger, but you can always trim off the excess if you need to, okay? So with that said, let's move on to the actual cupcake holder portion. I'm going to put this off to the side for now. Okay, so next up, we're going to put together the hexagon base for our actual cupcakes. Okay, so we're going to start with these 4 strips, and kind of like we did with the circular base, we're going to connect these side by side to begin forming our little base. Okay, so go ahead and connect these 4 pieces together, and then we're going to join them end to end to finish that assembly. Okay, so just give it a good few seconds to dry. It's actually, it looks like a complicated project, but it's really not that bad. Once you take your time and just do things systematically, one at a time. It's kind of like just building anything. Okay, I'm just going to bend at the score marks here and start forming our little hexagon shape. Then we're going to glue this together on the other end. Oops, and this glue bottle is out of control. Maybe it's me that's out of control. Okay, and I'm just going to lay this flat like this because that's going to help me make sure that I've got this thing nice and lined up. There we go. Okay, so we have our little hexagon shape, and I got it kind of stuck to my tape runner. Okay, and we're going to bend these pieces down. And I had a piece that came a little loose because I didn't take my time with the glue, which you will. It might be helpful to bend these while it's still flat so you don't risk applying any weird pressure to the glued tabbed areas. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and rejoin this piece that kind of came loose here. And then we can go ahead and continue with the assembly of this piece. Now this next piece here, this piece actually doesn't have a bottom because it's going to get glued on to the other base. So we found it kind of redundant to give it a bottom. I didn't want you guys wasting paper that you didn't need to waste. So you basically are just going to slip that in like that. Okay, obviously we're going to glue it, but I'm just getting it in place here. And then we can... So the next step is taking our liner piece and getting that glued down. That's going to help us form our base. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place glue on these tabs here. And again, this is a nice liner piece that we're strictly using to help with shaping this properly. It's going to add a little bit of stability to the piece as well, but most importantly, it's going to help us get that ideal shape that we need out of these exterior pieces. Okay, so we just kind of slip that in, make sure that it's nice and centered, and then just work your fingers around here, making sure that this all gets a good grip. Okay, so there's our liner. Now we can fold these pieces in. And we can flip this over. It looks like one of these always ends up being one of these that don't quite hold. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Just push that down. Make sure that it gets a good grip. Okay. All right. So there's our liner piece. And at this point, what we can go ahead and do is glue this piece on. Okay, and it's going to go right on there, like so. So we can go ahead and get that glued down. And then you're take a look at these, and you're probably wondering, well, what are these? Well, we wanted to strengthen the inside of this cupcake holder. And basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be gluing these pieces down here with these tabs. You're going to put glue on the bottom of these tabs, and these are going to get glued down once this is in place, and that's going to help structurally keep this more elevated so it doesn't bow in or bend in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put glue on these tabs here, and I'm actually going to start on just one side, and I'm going to work my way around just to make sure that I'm getting everything nice and lined up as perfectly as possible. And we've got holes in here where you can get your fingers in there. Your tiny little fingers in there and get that glued into place nice and perfectly. Okay, and then go to the other side here and get this glued into place. Okay, just make sure that it's nice and aligned. I love this glue because it does give you time to make any adjustments that you need before it completely sets. Okay, so then I would probably work my way more clockwise at this point and get this next tab glued into place. Get your fingers under there. Okay, and work on the next one. There we go. Get your fingers under there. Kind of push that in and run your finger along the edge there. Make sure that's nice and seamless. Okay, and then we have one left here. And now this is kind of, it's a little bit harder to get your glue under there, but should lift up just enough to where you can get it out. And get that glued into place. And you're going to repeat that process on these three sides here. If you want, just to make your life easier, you can put glue on all three of these and hope that you just get these all set in place before it dries. I'm going to go ahead and try that real quick and see if maybe that technique works a little bit better. Okay, get that in place, get that in place, and then get this piece in place. Yeah, that worked pretty well. Okay, and these are, and this thing is going to fit your standard size cupcakes that you'd get like at a grocery store perfectly. There's a few specialty franchises that make cupcakes, and theirs are pretty huge, but their cupcakes are also like $3.50 a piece. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really a big fan of spending $3.50 on a single cupcake. So again, these little tabs here, like mentioned, you're just going to put glue on that little tab and just make sure it's not obstructing the area that the cupcake's going to sit in. So the one that goes vertically, make sure that it's in there, but that tab, just glue it down like so. Okay, so I'm going to put some glue on the bottom of that and get that glued into place. And as you can see here, you see how it's kind of bending in here? It's nice and sturdy because we've got those little mechanisms there. Okay, now this also has some panels. Okay, they're scored. You're going to have a total of 4 of them, and you're simply going to glue those along the side like so. So you have 4 of those, and this piece also has a nice finishing liner that you're going to pop on here, and it only fits one way. So you're just going to put glue on the bottom of that and glue that into place. And once that's in place, you can grab the original base that we created and get that glued nice and centered on this, okay, because your crown is eventually going to fit right over that. And we've kind of left a little bit of room so that it's not too tight, but once it's on there, it doesn't really wiggle around too much, so you can transport it. You don't have to worry about the top coming off. Okay, so that's your base. So we've got your base completed. Now we can move on to putting together the crown. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to assemble the main structure of our crown. And I want you to begin by taking and folding these pieces. Make sure that you're working all of these score lines and getting them all nice and bent so that when we go to put this together, these pieces more easily take on the intended shape that they're supposed to have. That includes all the tabs as well, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. We're gonna begin at the top here. We're gonna place some glue on this tab. And you wanna do your best to get these aligned at a nice precise angle. And it can kind of help to bend this at almost a 90-degree angle, this tab, so that you can kind of see where that edge is. And of course, vertically, you want to make sure that it's nice and flush. Basically, you want to try to butt up right against that score line. And then horizontally, just make sure that these score lines are kind of on the same plane when you're looking at them like this. And that's going to ensure a nice proper fit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to this next tab here. And we can tuck that back under. And again, just the angle is the most important. Once you get that first one lined up horizontally, the rest of them should pretty much fall into place. Okay, but if you're noticing a little bit of a discrepancy, that's totally fine. It's not going to make or break the project. Do your best to get it aligned as accurately as possible. And then finally, we've got this larger tab here, and I want to go ahead and glue that into place as well. Make sure that everything is nice and aligned. Okay. So we've got the first two pieces put together. The rest of the process is going to go together the exact same way. So you want to repeat this process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more times until you've got a completed crown base. And I will meet you towards the end of this assembly. Okay, so we have the main structure of our crown completed. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the top on. Okay, we've got a little liner piece that's going to go in after we put the little topper on. So what we want to do is we're going to start by putting glue on just one of these sides here and doing our best to get this nice and aligned. And I'm kind of bringing this back a little bit to kind of use that angle that bringing the tab back creates to position this piece and help me line it up. It's kind of creating a natural line there at the bottom to use as a guide, almost like a level. Okay, so give that a chance to dry, and we're going to glue the rest of this in place. All right, so that is how the top goes on. And again, I'm kind of rushing through this, but you get the idea. And now what we can go ahead and do is assemble the little top piece here. Okay, and we want our texture side up. So the way this thing goes together is pretty straightforward. This bottom triangle is going to be used as an anchor to get everything glued in. So as I've mentioned before, you want to go ahead and get all these pieces nice and creased. Work those score lines, get them nice and trained so that this piece goes together beautifully. Now, you can actually, probably recommend doing this now. This piece does have some accent pieces. Okay, we did ours in a gold foil that you can glue into place here. Okay, and do that all the way around. You may as well do that now while it's a little bit easier to work with. And all we're going to do is simply put glue on these tabs and glue them to the neighbor. Okay, so you're going to push and hold that down until it dries, and then move on over to the next one. And I kind of globbed a little bit too much glue on there, so I'm going to just scrape a little bit of that off so it doesn't bleed through. And get that glued into place. So you're going to repeat that process until you have this topper completely put together. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end. Okay, so we have this piece assembled, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed this through here, like so, okay? And we're gonna glue these tabs to the underside of this piece here. Okay, so we're gonna stick that through. And we're gonna flip this thing over, and we're gonna put glue around. Actually, you can put glue on these individual tabs and just glue those down into place. And that's going to hold that piece in place. Okay, so you have your topper in place, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take this liner piece and just cover it up here just to make it look really nice. Okay, so that is pretty much it for that. And at this point, we can go ahead and start putting together the all the decorative elements for this thing. And actually, what you can do is, with this piece here, you want to glue the back side of this to the back side of this, okay? And then you're going to bend this at the score mark, like so. So this is going to be glued together, and then that's going to get glued right onto the top, like so. So that's going to be glued together. That's going to get glued there, okay? And we can go ahead and take a look at the decorative panel here. And the way this works is like this. It just gets glued on here. It's going to meet up right at the top there and right about there. So what you want to do is, oops, getting a little reckless here. I'm going to go ahead and you can put glue at the top of this. Make sure you get it out to the edge because we want it to be nice and seamless at the edge there. Okay, and then you can go ahead and put glue on roughly this area here. Okay, and then get that up, butted up against that topper. Make sure that you've got it nice and centered. Hold that in place, and then go ahead and get that glued to the base. That's really starting to come together. And again, you know, if you did have some boo-boos here and there, this piece is really going to clean that up. So it's not a huge deal. And really, this is pretty much, we're at the tail end here. There's not much more to this crown. Let me show you what we're going to do next. And actually, what you can do in between while you're waiting for things to dry, we've got these spears, I think they're called. And there's going to be a total of, there's 8 of them. Okay, and we have 8 of them created here. I'm not going to show you all of them because they're all the same, but they are made up of these 2 pieces. And what you want to do, you do want to train this to kind of have a natural curve. Same with the gold foil version, okay? And there is a little score mark up at the top, and the way that goes on is it gets glued on like so up here. So you're going to glue that on right there. Hopefully you can see that, okay? And then also, that is going to get glued on this liner piece here, on this panel piece, I should say. We have some score lines to indicate the position and where you want to glue this. Okay, so that's going to get glued down right there. And also, at the top of this piece, we have a little round score mark to help you line up this piece as well. So this is going to get glued on here using that little score mark right there. You can see it as a guide. So why don't I go ahead and just do that real quick, even though it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Again, these are, let me see here. Yeah, so there are more holes up at the top, there's less at the bottom. You want the ones with more holes up at the top to be at the top of this spear. Okay, and just get that glued down. And actually, while it's drying, you can even kind of train it a little bit, just so that it curves nicely. Okay, and as I mentioned, you're going to put glue on this little tab here. It's going to get tucked under and get glued right up against that little topper. Okay, so you want to hold that in place while it dries. Okay, and then once that's dry, we're going to put glue on the back of this piece here. I'm going to take this off so you can see. You're going to put glue on the back of this piece. Okay. And that's going to get glued into place here using those score marks as a guide. Okay, so you're going to hold that in place while it dries. Now I didn't get glue on this whole thing there, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's kind of how that should look. Okay, yours is going to be a lot neater, obviously. And then finally, all that's really left, and it looks like I thought I had some pieces missing, but I don't. So we have two elements left at this point, okay? Got this guy here. That is gonna wrap around the entire crown, okay? So you actually don't want to glue this piece down because we're gonna need to tuck the other end of this back there, okay? So you kind of want to start by gluing this down. Roughly start with the glue here and then start working your way around. And you want to kind of push that up against the crown so that it's nice and flush. Okay, so let me show you that. I'm just going to start by putting glue on this half here. Okay. Let me move this out of the way. And let's get this glued into place. And just use the nice corners there of the crown as a guide. You want to push that into place. Just hold it till it dries. Now again, this part is loose because I'm going to need to get glue in there later. Okay. And just kind of work your way around, making sure that that's nice and flush up against this line here. Okay, so you're going to work your way around. These pieces are going to get glued on top there, like so. And that's just going to keep going all the way around until you reach the other end. And when you get there, you're going to need to glue this piece to the inside of this piece. And you can peel this back and put a little bit of glue on there to make that final piece sit. Okay. So that's roughly what that's going to look like. And finally, all that's really left to do is to take the little panel piece that goes over that and get that glued into place. Okay, so that's going to get glued like so. So you're just going to get that glued all the way around. And then the final piece of the puzzle is gluing this guy down in that area there. We've got a nice little curve there for this thing to fit. It sits right in there like a little puzzle piece. So you just get that glued down and you're done. Basically, that's it. And let me show you the final crown here so that we can discuss some of the other things that we did to dress this thing up. Okay. And let's take a look here. So as you can see, the holes here, we added all sorts of cool rhinestones and bling. There's a little pearl there, and there's also in your download a cupcake wrapper, and we can discuss that. Now, one creepy thing about these cupcakes is I had a cupcake holder with SVG cuts that I just saw not too long ago in the old studio, and it had the original cupcakes that were in there, and they, aside from being dehydrated, had not done anything in the ways of decomposing, which was really creepy. But your cupcake topper is pretty straightforward. It comes out like this. It's got a little tab system, and you just simply feed the tab in there like that, and then just slide your cupcake in. Bam. And just pop them right into the little slot, and there you go. Ready to go. And there's your crown. Sits perfectly on the platform.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.